I'm Abigail Anderson, 34, a marketing executive who just wanted to sleep in my own bed. After my Chicago meetings got canceled, I caught an early flight home, exhausted but relieved. As I pulled into my driveway, unfamiliar trucks lined the street. Strange noises echoed from inside. When I unlocked my door, dust filled the air, workers swarmed my kitchen, and there stood my sister Rachel, clipboard in hand, directing the demolition of my beloved kitchen. My kitchen, without my permission, I froze in the doorway, suitcase still in hand. If you're watching this, drop a comment letting me know where you're tuning in from, hit that subscribe button, and stick around to find out what happens when family crosses the line. My house is my sanctuary. After finalizing my divorce 3 years ago, I poured everything into finding the perfect place to rebuild my life. When I discovered this 1,930 seconds Craftsman with its original hardwood floors and charming built-ins, I knew instantly it was meant to be mine. The real estate market was competitive, but I'd been saving for years and managed to make a strong offer. When I got the keys, I literally cried with joy. Every room in this house tells a story about who I am. The living room showcases my collection of vintage travel posters from places I visited: Paris, Tokyo, Buenos Aires. My home office features the antique desk that once belonged to my grandmother, a novelist who inspired my love of writing. The guest bedroom is painted a serene blue-gray that reminds me of the Oregon coast where I grew up. But my kitchen, that was my absolute pride and joy. I'd spent weeks researching, planning, and designing that space. The custom cabinets in a deep navy blue, the quartz countertops that had tiny flecks of gold that caught the morning light, the copper pendant lights that cast the perfect warm glow during my evening cooking sessions, the professional-grade gas range that had been my one true splurge. I'd chosen every single element deliberately, creating a space that was both beautiful and functional. My relationship with Rachel has always been complicated. She's 2 years younger, and growing up, she constantly lived in my shadow. At least that's how she saw it. I was the straight-A student. She struggled with academics. I went to college on scholarship. She dropped out after 1 semester. I built a successful career in marketing. She bounced between jobs, never quite finding her footing. Rachel has natural creative talents, especially in interior design. She has an eye for color and arrangement that I've always envied. 6 months ago, she finally landed her dream job at a boutique design firm in our city, and I was genuinely happy for her. It seemed like she was finally finding her path, but 3 months later, she was let go during company cutbacks. She took it hard, really hard. Since then, she's been trying to build a freelance design business, but clients have been scarce. Our weekly coffee meetups became sessions where I'd listen to her financial worries. I offered to help with her resume, to connect her with my network, even to loan her some money to tide her over. She accepted the loan, which I'm still waiting to be repaid, but declined the other offers, insisting she would make it on her own. I'd given Rachel a spare key to my house years ago for emergencies. She occasionally watered my plants when I traveled, or stopped by to pick up mail. Never had I imagined she would interpret this access as permission to fundamentally alter my property. This wasn't the first time Rachel had overstepped boundaries. Last Christmas, she reorganized my closet while staying over. On my birthday, she replaced my carefully selected living room curtains with ones she thought worked better with the space. Each time, I'd expressed my discomfort, and each time she'd dismissed my feelings with, "I was just trying to help," or, "You need to be more open to change." The business trip I'd been on was critical. Our agency had pitched a major campaign to a potential client that would double our annual revenue. As the lead strategist, I'd spent weeks preparing, flying to Chicago for what was supposed to be 2 weeks of intensive meetings. 3 days in, the client unexpectedly postponed due to internal restructuring. Rather than waiting in Chicago, I decided to return home and regroup. During the entire 10 days I'd been away, Rachel had never mentioned any renovation plans. No calls, no texts, no emails suggesting she was about to tear apart the heart of my home. We'd spoken twice once when I landed in Chicago, and once when she called to ask if she could borrow my stand mixer for a baking project. When I stepped into my house that Thursday afternoon, the scene was apocalyptic. Plastic sheeting hung from doorways. A fine layer of dust covered everything. Half of my kitchen cabinets had been removed, leaving ghostly outlines on the walls. My beautiful quartz countertops were gone, replaced by bare plywood. The copper pendant lights sat in a box on the floor, apparently deemed unsuitable for whatever vision Rachel was executing. 5 workers in various states of demolition looked up in surprise as I entered. Rachel stood in the center of the chaos, her blonde hair pulled back in a messy bun, wearing paint-splattered overalls I recognized as mine. For a moment, we just stared at each other, the sound of a distant power tool, the only noise breaking the silence. "Abby!" Rachel's voice held a mixture of surprise and forced cheerfulness. "You're home early." I stood frozen, my brain struggling to process the destruction before me. My beautiful kitchen, the one I'd saved for, designed, and loved, was being systematically dismantled. "What are you doing?" I finally managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Rachel's smile didn't falter as she stepped toward me, carefully navigating around a stack of what appeared to be new cabinet doors in a shade of bright white I would never have chosen. "Surprise!" She spread her arms wide. "I'm giving your kitchen the update it desperately needed. Don't worry, it's going to be amazing. I've been planning this for weeks." "Planning what, exactly?" I asked, setting down my suitcase. "Destroying my property without permission?" Rachel's smile flickered slightly. "Come on, Abby. Don't be dramatic. Your kitchen was so dated. Those navy cabinets were way too dark for this space. And that industrial-style range hood? It overwhelmed the room." "I loved that kitchen," I said, my voice growing stronger with anger. "I designed every inch of it. You had no right—" "You'll thank me when it's done," Rachel interrupted, waving dismissively. "I'm going for a much more contemporary farmhouse vibe. Light, bright, airy. It's what everyone wants now." I looked around at the expensive materials stacked against my dining room wall, marble tile that appeared to be imported Italian, custom cabinetry, high-end fixtures. My sister had been unemployed for months, struggling to pay her rent. There was no way she could afford this level of renovation. "How are you paying for all this?" I asked, gesturing to the expensive materials. Rachel's eyes darted away from mine. "It's taken care of," she said vaguely, then immediately changed the subject. "Wait until you see the farmhouse sink I've picked out. It's going to transform the whole space." I noticed the workers exchanging uncomfortable glances. One man in paint-splattered coveralls had stopped working entirely and was watching our exchange with evident discomfort. "Excuse me," I called to him. "Who authorized this renovation?" The man looked from me to Rachel and back again. We were contracted by Miss Anderson," he replied hesitantly. "I'm Abigail Anderson," I said firmly. "This is my house, and I did not authorize any renovations." Rachel stepped between us. "Guys, could you give my sister and me a moment, please? Maybe take an early lunch break? We need to discuss some family business." The workers seemed relieved to have an excuse to leave. They quickly set down their tools and filed out the front door, leaving Rachel and me alone in the disaster zone that had been my kitchen. "What the hell, Rachel?" I exploded once the door closed. "You can't just break into someone's house and start demolishing it." "I didn't break in," Rachel countered. "You gave me a key, and I wasn't demolishing it, I'm improving it. Besides, I knew you'd say no if I asked first because you're so resistant to change." "Of course I'd say no. It's my house. My kitchen, my decision." Rachel rolled her eyes, a gesture that instantly transported me back to our teenage years, when she'd dismiss everything I said with the same contemptuous look. "You're being completely unreasonable," she said. "This is going to increase your property value by at least $20,000. You should be thanking me." I took a deep breath, trying to center myself. "Rachel, this is serious. You had no legal right to do this. Where did you even get the money for all these materials?" Rachel fidgeted with her clipboard. "It's a sponsored renovation," she admitted. "Sponsored? What does that mean?" "It means I'm filming it for my new YouTube channel," she said, suddenly animated. "Home with Rachel." I'm pivoting to content creation since the design firm let me go. This renovation is my launch project. I stared at her in disbelief. You're filming in my house without my permission? The cameras are already set up, she said defensively. In the living room, dining room, and upstairs bathroom too. You put cameras in my house? My voice rose to a pitch I barely recognized. Where? Rachel pointed to a small device cleverly disguised on my bookshelf. I hadn't even noticed it when I walked in. They're just small live stream cameras, she explained as if this were perfectly normal. The sponsoring company provided them. The audience loves watching the whole process, seeing the before and after of every room. I was speechless, a new level of violation washing over me. Not only had Rachel invaded my home and destroyed my kitchen, but she'd also been broadcasting it to strangers on the internet. Take them down, I said, my voice deadly quiet. Take down every single camera right now. Abby, be reasonable. Now, Rachel, I shouted, startling both of us. Rachel flinched, but then squared her shoulders. Fine, but you're ruining a huge opportunity for me. This sponsorship could launch my entire career. As she began collecting the hidden cameras, I sank into my dust-covered couch, the full weight of the situation settling over me. This wasn't just about an unauthorized renovation anymore. My sister had violated my privacy in a profound way, broadcasting my personal space to who knows how many viewers. How could you think this was okay? I asked as she unplugged a camera hidden behind my television. How could you possibly justify this to yourself? Rachel's face hardened. Not everyone has it as easy as you do, Abby. Some of us have to create our own opportunities. The bitterness in her voice shocked me. Was that really how she saw me? As having an easy life? After everything I'd worked for? Everything I'd overcome? This isn't about creating opportunities, I said. This is about basic respect for other people's boundaries and property. Whatever, Rachel muttered, dropping the collected cameras into a bag. You've always been like this. So rigid, so controlling. Heaven forbid anyone touch Abby's perfect little world. I felt tears stinging my eyes but refused to let them fall. This wasn't just about the kitchen anymore. This was about years of tension, competition, and misunderstanding between us. And right now, I couldn't begin to untangle it all. I want you out of my house, I said quietly. Take your cameras and go. Rachel stared at me for a long moment before grabbing her bag. Fine. But you'll regret this, Abby. I was trying to help you, whether you can see that or not. She slammed the door as she left, leaving me alone in the ruins of my once beautiful home. After Rachel left, I spent an hour just sitting in my dust-covered living room, trying to process what had happened. When I finally found the energy to move, I decided to inspect the full extent of the damage. The kitchen was worse than I initially thought. Not only had the cabinets and countertops been removed, but I discovered the flooring had been partially torn up as well. My beautiful hand-laid ceramic tile, the one with the subtle geometric pattern that I'd spent weeks selecting, was now a jagged patchwork, half removed and utterly ruined. Moving through the house, I realized Rachel's improvements weren't limited to the kitchen. In the dining room, she'd removed my vintage chandelier, a 1,920 piece I'd found at an estate sale, and carefully restored. In its place hung a modern farmhouse-style fixture with Edison bulbs that didn't match my aesthetic at all. In the living room, my carefully arranged bookshelves had been completely reorganized. Books were now arranged by color rather than by subject, with decorative objects placed at intervals in what I recognized as a standard influencer style meant to look good on camera. But it was when I reached the guest bathroom that I felt truly sick. The renovation had already begun there, too. My classic black and white tile was half demolished, with a trendy, patterned hexagon tile, ready to replace it. The vintage-inspired fixtures I'd hunted down to maintain the home's original character were gone, replaced by modern matte black versions still in their boxes. As I surveyed the chaos, I noticed Rachel had left her tote bag behind in her hasty departure. I hesitated for only a moment before looking inside. If she felt entitled to invade my privacy so completely, I had no qualms about examining what she'd left in my home. Inside the bag, I found a folder of documents that made my blood run cold. Contracts, sponsorship agreements, materials invoices, all with my name on them. Abigail Anderson, except I hadn't signed any of them. With shaking hands, I spread the papers across my coffee table. A sponsorship agreement with Homestyle Living, a major home improvement retail chain, promising $25,000 in materials and $15,000 in cash payment for a full home renovation series. A contract with a construction company for labor costs, totaling $30,000. Permits filed with the city with my forged signature for structural changes to my home. Most disturbing was a content creation schedule outlining a 12-part video series called Surprise Home Makeover. Sister edition with detailed plans for renovating not just my kitchen and bathroom, but my bedroom, office, and backyard as well. The projected timeline showed the entire renovation continuing for another 8 weeks. I grabbed my phone and immediately dialed Homestyle Living's corporate number listed on the sponsorship agreement. After navigating through an automated menu, I reached a voicemail for their marketing department. I left an urgent message explaining that I was the real Abigail Anderson and that I had not authorized any renovation or sponsorship deal. Next, I tried calling the construction company, but it was after hours, and I got another voicemail. Frustrated, I texted Rachel. Found the contracts. We need to talk now. 20 minutes later, Rachel reluctantly returned. She stood awkwardly in my living room, refusing to meet my eyes. Did you forge my signature? I asked without preamble. Rachel shifted uncomfortably. I wouldn't call it forging. I just signed for you since I knew you'd be on board once you saw the finished project. That's the literal definition of forgery, Rachel. It's illegal. I held up the sponsorship agreement. You committed fraud. You told these companies you were me. No, she corrected. I told them I was doing a renovation for you. They assumed you had approved it. But you knew I hadn't, I pressed. You deliberately misled them. Look, I needed this opportunity, Rachel said, her voice rising defensively. My design career was going nowhere. No one was hiring me. But this could launch my YouTube channel, make me an influencer, create a whole new career path. So you decided to use my house, my name, and my credit to do it? I was incredulous. Do you realize I could be held financially responsible for all of this? That's over $70,000 in contracts you've signed, in my name. You would have been fine with it if you'd just stayed in Chicago like you were supposed to, Rachel shouted. The renovation would have been done. Your house would have been improved, and you'd have gotten over it. Get over having my home violated without my consent? I stared at her in disbelief. Get over having my privacy broadcasted online? Get over having my signature forged on legal documents? Are you hearing yourself? You've always been like this, Rachel said bitterly. Always so ungrateful. Always holding me back. Holding you back? I've supported you your entire life. I loaned you money when you lost your job. I've been your biggest cheerleader. As long as I stay in your shadow, Rachel spat. As long as I don't outshine perfect Abigail with her perfect career and her perfect house. I was stunned into silence. Was this really how she saw our relationship? As some sort of competition I was deliberately winning? That's not true, I said quietly. I've never tried to overshadow you. You never had to try, Rachel said, her voice breaking slightly. It just came naturally to you. Top of the class, Dad's favorite, Mom's pride and joy. And me? I was always just Rachel, Abigail's less successful sister. Rachel, that's not. Save it, she interrupted, grabbing her bag. You've made your position clear. You don't support my career. You never have. This isn't about supporting your career. This is about you committing crimes, using my name. Rachel paused at the door. I'll have the crew come get their tools tomorrow. You can deal with the sponsorship company yourself. And with that, she was gone again, leaving me with a half-demolished house and potentially tens of thousands of dollars in legal problems. As I sat amid the ruins of my home, I realized this went far deeper than an unauthorized renovation. This was about childhood wounds, perceived favoritism, and a lifetime of Rachel feeling second best. But understanding her pain didn't excuse her actions. And now I had to figure out how to clean up this mess, both the physical destruction of my home and the legal nightmare she'd created. I barely slept that night, tossing and turning as dust from the renovation settled on every surface in my bedroom. My mind raced with worst-case scenarios. Would I be sued by the sponsorship company? Would my insurance cover any of this unauthorized work? How much would it cost to restore my kitchen and bathroom to their original state? At 7:30 the next morning, my doorbell rang. I pulled myself out of bed, still wearing yesterday's clothes, and opened the door to find 3 people in home-style living polo shirts standing on my porch. "Good morning, Miss Anderson," the woman at the front said cheerfully. "We're here for today's filming segment. The crew should be arriving shortly to continue with the kitchen demo." I took a deep breath. "I'm Abigail Anderson," I said, pulling my driver's license from my wallet. "The real Abigail Anderson. And I did not authorize any renovation or sponsorship agreement with your company." The woman's smile faltered as she examined my ID. "I don't understand. We've been working with Abigail Anderson for the past week. That was my sister, Rachel. She has been impersonating me and forged my signature on your contracts. I just returned home yesterday to find my house partially demolished without my knowledge or consent." The 3 representatives exchanged alarmed glances. The woman, whose name badge identified her as Melissa Porter, marketing director, asked if they could come inside to discuss the situation. I led them into my dust-covered living room, clearing off the sofa so they could sit. For the next hour, I explained everything, showing them the contracts I'd found with my forged signature, describing how I'd returned early from a business trip to find my home under unauthorized renovation. "This is a very serious situation, Miss Anderson," Melissa said, her previous cheer replaced by professional concern. "Our company entered this agreement in good faith, believing we were dealing with the legitimate homeowner." "I understand that," I assured her. "I don't blame Homestyle Living. My sister deceived everyone involved. Nevertheless, we've already invested considerable resources in this project," Melissa continued. "The materials have been purchased, sponsorship funds have been partially dispersed, and our marketing team has already begun promoting the series." "To whom were the funds dispersed?" I asked. "To Abigail Anderson," Melissa replied, checking her tablet. "Direct deposit to an account at First National Bank." I closed my eyes briefly. Rachel must have opened an account in my name as well. The identity theft went even deeper than I'd initially realized. "We may have no choice but to pursue legal action to recover our costs," said one of the other representatives, a serious-looking man in his 50s. "While we sympathize with your situation, Homestyle Living has shareholders to answer to. We can't simply absorb a loss of this magnitude." "I understand," I said, my stomach sinking. "But I hope you'll direct any legal action toward my sister, who is the one who committed the fraud, not me." "That will be for our legal team to determine," he replied, noncommittally. "We'll need to review all the documentation and consult with our attorneys." After the Homestyle representatives left, promising to be in touch soon, I called my insurance company. The conversation did not go well. "I'm sorry, Miss Anderson," the claims adjuster said after I explained the situation. "Your homeowner's policy doesn't cover unauthorized renovations or damage caused by someone you voluntarily gave access to your home. Since you provided your sister with a key, this would be considered authorized access from an insurance perspective." "But I didn't authorize her to renovate." "I understand," the adjuster said sympathetically. "But from an insurance standpoint, this is considered a personal dispute, not a covered peril. Now, if there's subsequent water damage from the exposed plumbing or electrical damage from the incomplete work, those secondary issues might be covered. But the renovation itself and the cost to restore your home to its previous condition would not be covered under your policy." After hanging up, I called a local contractor recommended by a friend who agreed to come by that afternoon to assess the damage. His estimate was staggering. "To restore everything to its previous state, you're looking at about $45,000, he said, looking up from his clipboard. "And that's assuming there's no hidden damage once we get further into the project. These older homes can have surprises behind the walls." I felt dizzy. Between potential legal liabilities and restoration costs, this disaster could easily cost me over $100,000 money. I definitely didn't have just sitting around. As I was showing the contractor out, my phone rang. It was David, my boss. "Abigail, how quickly can you get back to Chicago?" he asked without preamble. "Westridge has reconsidered and wants to meet Monday morning. They're ready to move forward with the campaign, but they specifically asked for you to be there." Westridge was the major client whose meetings had been postponed. Landing their account was crucial, not just for our agency, but for my career trajectory as well. I had been counting on leading this project to position myself for the promotion to creative director that would be opening up later this year. "Monday?" I repeated, staring at the destruction around me. "David, I'm dealing with a major crisis at home right now." "What kind of crisis?" he asked, his voice sharpening with concern. I briefly explained the situation with my house. "That's awful," he said, sounding genuinely sympathetic. "But Abigail, I need to be straight with you. If you're not in that meeting on Monday, I'll have to send Morgan instead. And if Morgan lands this account," he didn't need to finish the sentence. Morgan was my most talented direct report and also my biggest competition for the creative director position. If she successfully landed Westridge without me, my chances at promotion would evaporate. "I'll figure something out," I promised, though I had no idea how I would manage it. After hanging up, I sat down on my stairs and finally let the tears come. Everything was falling apart simultaneously. My home, my financial security, potentially my career, all because Rachel couldn't respect basic boundaries. As I sat there crying, my phone pinged with a notification. Rachel had tagged me in an Instagram post. With trembling fingers, I opened the app to find a beautifully edited photo of my half-demolished kitchen with the caption, "So excited to reveal my biggest project yet, giving my sister at Abigail Anderson the surprise home makeover of her dreams. Can't wait to show you the transformation. Sister surprise, home renovation, interior design, before and after." The post already had hundreds of likes and dozens of comments praising Rachel for her generosity and creativity. Just then, my phone rang again. It was my mother. "Abigail, why didn't you tell me Rachel was renovating your house? I just saw her posts online. It looks so exciting." I took a deep, steadying breath. "Mom, Rachel is renovating my house without my permission. I came home to find it partially demolished." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Well, I'm sure she meant well," my mother said finally. "You know how creative she is. And your kitchen was a bit dark." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mom, she forged my signature on legal documents. She's impersonating me to companies. This isn't about whether my kitchen was too dark." "Don't be so dramatic, Abigail," my mother sighed. "Rachel is finally finding her path. Can't you just support her for once? She told me she's been having a hard time since losing her job, and this YouTube channel could really launch her career. So I'm supposed to let her destroy my house and potentially ruin me financially to support her career?" I asked incredulously. "No one's asking you to be ruined financially," my mother said dismissively. "But would it kill you to be a little flexible? To let your sister shine for once?" I ended the call shortly after, feeling even more alone than before. Not only was my sister betraying me, but my own mother was taking her side, minimizing the gravity of the situation. As evening fell, I sat in my wrecked living room, surrounded by dust and debris, feeling utterly overwhelmed. My home was in shambles. Companies were threatening legal action. My career was in jeopardy. My family was pressuring me to just go along with Rachel's scheme. And I had exactly 2 days to somehow resolve enough of this mess to get to Chicago by Monday morning. I'd never felt so trapped or so betrayed in my entire life. The next morning dawned with a sense of dread hanging over me. I'd spent most of the night researching my legal options and making lists of everything I needed to address. My kitchen still had exposed pipes and electrical wiring, making it essentially unusable. I'd managed to set up a makeshift coffee station in my bedroom using an old French press and an electric kettle. Just as I was finishing my coffee, I heard vehicles pulling up outside. Looking out the window, I saw Rachel stepping out of her car, followed by a white van with Brightside Media Productions emblazoned on the side. 3 people carrying camera equipment emerged from the van, along with a woman holding a makeup kit. Before they could reach my front door, I stepped outside, arms crossed. "What do you think you're doing?" I demanded. Rachel flashed a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Today's filming day. We're capturing the continuation of the kitchen demo and starting on the bathroom transformation." The camera crew looked between us uncertainly. "There will be no filming," I stated firmly, "and no further demolition. I've contacted Homestyle Living and informed them that their sponsorship agreement was fraudulent." Rachel's smile faltered only slightly as she turned to her crew. "Could you guys give us a minute? Family stuff." Once they retreated to the van, Rachel's demeanor changed completely. "What the hell, Abby? You're gonna ruin everything." "I'm going to ruin everything? You destroyed my house. You committed identity theft. You forged my signature on legal documents. You're being so dramatic," Rachel scoffed. "It's just a renovation. Your house will look 1,000 times better when it's done." "That's not your decision to make. And this isn't just about the renovation anymore. You've put me in serious legal and financial jeopardy. Homestyle Living is threatening to sue for the sponsorship money they've already paid out." Rachel rolled her eyes. "They're not going to sue. It's great publicity for them." "They absolutely will sue," I insisted. "Their marketing director was here yesterday. This is a serious corporate contract worth tens of thousands of dollars, not some casual arrangement between friends." Just then, a car pulled into my driveway. To my surprise, my parents stepped out. "What are you doing here?" I asked, momentarily distracted from the confrontation with Rachel. "Rachel called us," my father explained, looking uncomfortable. "She said you were having some sort of meltdown over the renovation." "I am not having a meltdown," I said through gritted teeth. "I am reasonably upset that my sister destroyed my property without permission and committed multiple felonies in my name." "Let's all go inside and discuss this calmly," my mother suggested, already moving toward the front door. "The camera crew stays outside," I insisted. Once inside, my parents got their first look at the extent of the demolition. Even my father, who typically stayed neutral in conflicts between Rachel and me, looked shocked. "Good grief," he muttered, surveying the kitchen. "This is more than a little touch-up." "Rachel, did Abigail really not know about any of this?" my mother asked, her certainty from our phone call visibly wavering. "She would have said no if I'd asked," Rachel replied defensively. "She never supports my creative vision." "Because it's my house," I exploded. "My home that I paid for. My kitchen that I designed and loved. You had no right." "Girls, please," my father interjected. "There has to be a way to resolve this without all the shouting." Just then, there was a knock at the door. Rachel moved to answer it before I could, letting in her entire camera crew plus 2 more people I didn't recognize. "What part of the crew stays outside was unclear?" I demanded. "We need to keep filming, Abby," Rachel said, an edge of desperation in her voice. "I've already posted teasers. I have thousands of followers invested in this renovation story now. The reveal is scheduled for next month." "I don't care about your content schedule. This is my home, and I want everyone out now." "You heard her." My father backed me up, surprising me. "Everyone out except family." As the crew reluctantly began packing up their equipment, one of the newcomers approached me. "Miss Anderson, I'm Julian Myers, executive producer for Homestyle Living's digital content. We need to discuss how to proceed with this partnership." "There is no partnership," I stated firmly. "I never agreed to any of this. My sister fraudulently used my name." The man glanced at Rachel, who was whispering urgently to the camera operator, apparently instructing him to keep filming despite my objections. "Miss Anderson, Rachel," Julian clarified, "told us you were fully on board with the project. We've already invested significantly in this content series." "She lied to you," I said bluntly. "And I want that camera turned off right now." The cameraman looked to Rachel, who nodded reluctantly, and he finally lowered the camera. "I have a proposal," Julian said, addressing both Rachel and me. "Since the demolition has already begun, why don't we continue with the renovation, But with Abigail's input from this point forward, we can adjust the narrative of the series, perhaps position it as a collaborative project between sisters. Absolutely not, I refused. I want my kitchen restored to exactly the way it was before. That's impossible, Rachel interjected. The original materials have already been removed and discarded. What? I stared at her in disbelief. My custom cabinets? The quartz countertops? They're in a dumpster somewhere, Rachel said dismissively. Besides, they were totally outdated. This farmhouse aesthetic will increase your property value substantially. Julian seemed to sense an opportunity in our dispute. What if homestyle living covered the cost of the renovation? You'd get a brand new kitchen and bathroom, designed to your specifications, at no cost to you. But the content series continues, Rachel added quickly. With both of us. I was about to refuse outright when my father touched my arm. Abby, can we speak privately for a moment? He asked quietly. We stepped into my office, the one room that hadn't been touched by Rachel's renovation plans yet. I think you should consider their offer, my father said once the door was closed. This renovation is going to cost a fortune to undo, if they're willing to pay for it. Dad, it's not just about the money, I explained. Rachel violated my home, my privacy, my trust. She forged my signature. She opened bank accounts in my name. Those are crimes. I understand, he said solemnly. And I'm not excusing what she did. But I'm worried about both of you. If you press charges against your sister— Who said anything about pressing charges? I interrupted. My father looked surprised. Isn't that where this is heading? Identity theft is a serious crime, Abby. The reality of the situation hit me all at once. Yes, what Rachel had done was criminal. Yes, I had grounds to file a police report, to press charges, to potentially send my own sister to jail. But was that really what I wanted? Before I could respond, we heard raised voices from the living room. We rushed back to find Rachel and my mother in a heated argument. Can't believe you borrowed money from us for business expenses when you were using it for this scheme, my mother was saying, her face flushed with anger. It was a business expense, Rachel insisted. This renovation series is my business now, and once it goes viral, I'll pay you back twice over. You lied to us, my mother said, her voice breaking. You said you needed that money for your portfolio website and business cards. I looked between them, confused. What money? My father sighed heavily. Your mother and I loaned Rachel $15,000 last month to help get her design business off the ground. Apparently, it went to this project instead. It's an investment in my future, Rachel insisted. Once this series takes off, I'll have sponsors lining up. I'll pay everyone back. How exactly are you planning to finish this series without Abby's cooperation? My father asked pointedly. Rachel's expression hardened as she turned to me. Abby will cooperate if she knows what's good for her. Is that a threat? I asked incredulously. It's reality, Rachel replied coolly. If you shut this down now, you'll be the villain. The jealous sister who couldn't stand to see me succeed. I've already built a narrative online, the generous designer giving her workaholic sister a dream home makeover. My followers love it. If you pull the plug, you'll be crucified on social media. I don't care about your followers, I exclaimed. Your boss might, Rachel countered. Your clients might. Do you think Westridge would want to work with someone who's being trashed all over the internet as a vindictive, ungrateful sister? I felt as if I'd been slapped. You wouldn't. Try me, Rachel challenged. Let me finish the renovation. Let me complete my series, and everyone wins. Fight me on this, and I'll make sure everyone knows how you sabotaged your struggling sister when all she was trying to do was help you. The room fell silent. My parents looked shocked at Rachel's naked manipulation. Julian and the camera crew seemed deeply uncomfortable witnessing this family implosion. Rachel, my father said quietly. That's enough. No, Dad, it's not enough, Rachel snapped. I'm tired of always being the family disappointment, while Abby gets all the praise just for being born perfect. For once in my life, I've found something I'm good at, something that could make me successful, and she wants to take it away from me. Just like always. I have never tried to hold you back, I protested. I've supported you in everything. As long as I stayed in my lane, right? As long as I didn't touch your precious perfect life? God, Abby, your taste is so basic and outdated anyway. I was saving you from embarrassment with this renovation. That was it, the final straw. The culmination of not just the renovation disaster, but years of Rachel's resentment, manipulation, and boundary violations. Everyone out, I said, my voice deadly quiet. Now, Abby, my mother started. Everyone out of my house. I enunciated each word clearly. Rachel, give me your key. You can't be serious, Rachel scoffed. Either give me the key, or I'm calling a locksmith the minute you leave. And the police. Something in my expression must have convinced Rachel I wasn't bluffing. She yanked her keychain from her purse, removed my house key, and slammed it on the coffee table. You'll regret this, she said as she gathered her things. When you've calmed down and realized what an opportunity you're throwing away, don't come crawling back. Just go, I whispered, fighting back tears. One by one, they all filed out, the camera crew, Julian, my confused and distressed parents, and finally Rachel, who paused at the door. I was only trying to help you, she said, a hint of genuine hurt in her voice. No, I replied softly. You were only trying to help yourself, using me, my home, and our relationship as props for your ambition. She didn't respond to that, just turned and walked out. I locked the door behind her, then sank to the floor, finally allowing myself to fully break down in the privacy of my demolished home. After crying until I had no tears left, I picked myself up off the floor and did what I always do in a crisis. I made a plan. This situation felt overwhelming because I was trying to solve everything at once. I needed to break it down into manageable steps. First, I called a locksmith who arrived within the hour to change all my locks. It was an expense I hadn't budgeted for, but peace of mind was worth every penny. Next, I documented everything, taking detailed photos of all the damage, gathering the forged contracts and documents Rachel had left behind, and writing a comprehensive timeline of events. Then I called Samantha, a college friend who had become a successful property attorney. Despite it being a Saturday, she agreed to meet me for coffee to discuss my options. You have a solid legal case against both your sister and potentially the companies involved, Samantha explained after I showed her the documentation. Identity theft, forgery, destruction of property, these are serious matters. But I have to ask, Abby, do you want to pursue legal action against your sister? I stared into my coffee cup, conflicted. I don't want to destroy Rachel's life, I admitted. But I also can't afford to fix this mess myself. And I'm worried she'll do something like this again if there are no consequences. Samantha nodded thoughtfully. There's a middle path here. We can approach the companies involved, Homestyle Living and the construction firm, with evidence that you were defrauded. They may be willing to work with you directly to resolve the situation without involving the police, especially if it helps them avoid negative publicity. And what about Rachel? Family legal matters are complex, Samantha said carefully. But setting clear boundaries with consequences isn't the same as pressing charges. You could require Rachel to acknowledge what she did, perhaps in writing, and agree to certain conditions moving forward. Armed with Samantha's advice and a legal strategy, I felt more in control. That afternoon, I sent emails to both Homestyle Living and the construction company, attaching copies of my identification, proof of home ownership, and a detailed explanation of the situation. I requested urgent meetings with both. The next challenge was my impending business trip. I couldn't leave my house in its current state, with exposed wiring and plumbing, but missing the Westridge meeting wasn't an option either. After some thought, I reached out to Miguel, my neighbor who worked in home security and whom I trusted completely. He agreed to house sit while I was gone and supervise any emergency repairs that couldn't wait. Sunday morning, I heard back from Melissa at Homestyle Living, who requested a video conference that afternoon. The call was tense but productive. Miss Anderson, after reviewing your documentation and consulting with our legal team, we agree that you were not a party to our sponsorship agreement, Melissa stated formally. However, we've invested considerably in this project already. I understand that, I acknowledged. And I'm not looking to harm your company. I'm just trying to protect myself and restore my home. After an hour of negotiation, we reached a surprising compromise. Homestyle Living would redirect the sponsorship to legitimately renovate my kitchen and bathroom with my full involvement in the design process in exchange for my participation in a modified content series. Not as a surprise makeover, but as an authentic renovation journey, including addressing what happened with Rachel. Transparency about renovation mishaps could actually resonate with our audience, Melissa suggested. Not everyone has an interior designer sister, but many people have experienced renovation disasters or family boundary issues. It wasn't what I had initially wanted, but it was a practical solution. I would get my home restored professionally at no cost to me, and Homestyle Living would get their content. I insisted on final approval rights for any footage that included me or my home, which they reluctantly agreed to. The construction company was similarly amenable to working directly with me once they understood the situation. They agreed to pause all work until I returned from Chicago and could properly review and approve plans. With the immediate crises somewhat stabilized, I boarded my flight to Chicago on Monday morning. The Westridge meeting went exceptionally well, better than I had dared hope. Despite operating on minimal sleep and maximum stress, I managed to present our campaign with passion and precision. By Tuesday afternoon, we had officially landed the account. "Outstanding work, Abby," David said as we left the Westridge offices. "I don't know how you pulled that off while dealing with your home situation, but I'm impressed." "Thank you," I said, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. "It's been a challenging few days, but I'm learning that I can handle more than I thought." During my brief time in Chicago, I received multiple calls and texts from my parents and extended family members. Some expressed support and concern for me. Others, who had apparently heard Rachel's version of events, accused me of overreacting and trying to sabotage my sister's career. I responded to the supportive messages and ignored the rest, focusing instead on my work and on finalizing arrangements with Homestyle Living and the construction company. When I returned home 3 days later, Miguel had overseen emergency plumbing and electrical repairs that made my house functional, if not beautiful. I spent the weekend meeting with legitimate contractors and designers from Homestyle Living, creating a renovation plan that respected my home's character while incorporating some thoughtful updates. Rachel continued posting on social media, positioning herself as the victim of a jealous sister who couldn't handle her success. She gathered a small but vocal group of supporters who occasionally left nasty comments on my social accounts. I simply blocked them and moved on. Some family members continued to pressure me to forgive and forget and work things out with your sister. My mother, in particular, seemed determined to restore harmony without addressing the underlying issues. "Can't you just let her finish what she started?" she pleaded during one phone call. "She's really struggling with this setback." "Mom, what Rachel did wasn't just inconsiderate, it was criminal," I explained, for what felt like the 100th time. "I'm handling it as compassionately as I can, but there have to be consequences." "She's your sister," my mother insisted. "Family comes first." "Respecting boundaries is part of being a family," I countered. "I love Rachel, but I can't trust her right now, and I won't pretend everything's okay when it isn't." That conversation was difficult, but it represented a new chapter for me, one where I stood firm in my boundaries despite family pressure. I was done enabling Rachel's behavior out of a misguided sense of sisterly duty. A month after the incident, I received an unexpected email from Rachel's therapist requesting a joint session. Apparently, after the renovation disaster, Rachel had finally sought professional help to address her impulsivity and boundary issues. While hesitant, I agreed to one session, hoping it might lead to genuine understanding. The session was surprisingly productive. For perhaps the first time, Rachel seemed to grasp the severity of what she had done. "I've been diagnosed with some impulse control issues," she explained quietly. "It doesn't excuse what I did, but it helps explain why I sometimes do these grand things without thinking through consequences." "I appreciate you telling me that," I said carefully. "But understanding why doesn't erase the harm or rebuild the trust." "I know," she acknowledged. "The therapist has been helping me see how my jealousy of you has been driving a lot of my behavior. I've been competing with you our whole lives, even when you weren't competing back. That admission struck me deeply. How much of our relationship had been shaped by Rachel's perception of competition that I wasn't even aware we were engaged in. We didn't leave the session as best friends, but we did establish some tentative ground rules for moving forward. Rachel agreed to respect my boundaries and to continue therapy. I agreed to consider gradually rebuilding our relationship if she demonstrated consistent change. It was a small step, but an important one. Meanwhile, the legitimate renovation of my home progressed smoothly. Working with professional designers who actually respected my input was a refreshing change. I opted for a kitchen that honored the original character of my home while incorporating some modern elements that truly suited my taste. Homestyle Living created a content series called Renovation Recovery, Building Back Better, that documented the process. To my surprise, it resonated strongly with viewers, many of whom had experienced their own renovation disasters or family boundary violations. The comment sections filled with supportive messages and stories from people who had navigated similar challenges. 3 months after Rachel had destroyed my kitchen, I stood in the completed space, running my hand along the smooth new countertop. The design honored my original vision while incorporating some thoughtful updates. The navy cabinets were back, though in a slightly lighter shade. The new quartz countertops had similar gold flecks to my original ones. The professional range was even better than my previous model. My home was whole again, different, but still mine. And in the process of rebuilding it, I had rebuilt myself as well. I had established stronger boundaries, not just with Rachel, but with everyone in my life. I had learned that saying no didn't make me a bad sister or daughter, and I had discovered a resilience I hadn't known I possessed. The renovation disaster had been exactly that, a disaster. But from those ruins had emerged a stronger home and a stronger me. It's been 6 months since I walked into my house to find Rachel demolishing my kitchen. 6 months of rebuilding not just my home, but my sense of security, my family relationships, and my understanding of myself. The physical renovation was completed 3 months ago, and I've settled back into a comfortable routine. My kitchen is beautiful, perhaps even more beautiful than before, with the navy cabinets I loved, restored alongside new elements that genuinely enhance the space. The bathroom renovation turned out equally well, maintaining the character of my craftsman home while adding modern conveniences I hadn't even known I needed. Professionally, I've thrived, despite the chaos in my personal life. The Westridge campaign launched successfully, exceeding even our most optimistic projections. Last month, David called me into his office and officially offered me the creative director position I'd been working toward. The promotion came with a substantial salary increase that helped offset some of the unexpected expenses from the renovation crisis. "You've shown extraordinary resilience and leadership," David told me during that meeting. "Anyone who can handle a major client acquisition while dealing with a personal crisis of that magnitude has exactly the kind of composure we need in this role." My relationships with my family have evolved in complex ways. Some relatives still don't fully understand why I couldn't just let it go for Rachel's sake. Others have gained a new respect for my boundaries. My father, surprisingly, has become one of my strongest advocates. "I realized we've been enabling Rachel's behavior for years," he confessed during a private lunch last month. "Always making excuses, always cleaning up her messes. It wasn't helping her or you. My mother has had a harder time adjusting to the new dynamic. She still sometimes tries to broker peace without accountability. Still occasionally suggests that I'm being too harsh with Rachel. But even she has begun to understand that true reconciliation requires genuine change, not just swept under the rug forgiveness." As for Rachel herself, our relationship remains a work in progress. The joint therapy session opened a door to more honest communication, but rebuilding trust takes time. Rachel continued with her individual therapy, addressing not just her impulsivity, but her long-standing jealousy and competitive feelings toward me. 3 months after the incident, she sent me a handwritten letter that felt like the first genuine apology I'd ever received from her. "I violated your home, your trust, and our relationship," she wrote. "I convinced myself I was helping you when I was really only thinking about myself. I'm truly sorry, Abby, not because I got caught, but because I hurt you deeply and damaged our relationship in ways that may never fully heal. I appreciated the apology, but still maintained my distance. Words needed to be backed by consistent actions before I could allow Rachel back into my life in any meaningful way. Gradually, Rachel began to demonstrate real change. She stopped posting manipulative content on social media. She respected my request for limited contact. She found legitimate freelance design work instead of trying to build a career through deception. When our cousin got engaged and asked Rachel to help design the wedding, Rachel actually called me first to make sure I was comfortable with her involvement, a small but significant acknowledgement of boundaries. 2 weeks ago, we had coffee together for the first time since the renovation disaster. It was awkward, but not hostile. "I miss you," Rachel admitted, "but I understand why you needed space." "I've missed you too," I replied honestly, "the sister I knew before all this happened." "I'm trying to be a better version of that person," she said. "Someone who can be happy for you without feeling threatened. Someone who can pursue her own dreams without trampling over others." I don't know if Rachel and I will ever recapture the closeness we had in childhood before competition and resentment complicated our relationship. But I'm cautiously optimistic that we might build something new, something healthier, with clear boundaries and genuine respect. The renovation debacle taught me invaluable lessons about setting and maintaining boundaries, even with family. For too long, I had accepted Rachel's boundary violations as just how she is, never truly holding her accountable. I had confused enabling with love, tolerance with acceptance. Now I understand that true love includes limits, that healthy relationships require mutual respect. That saying no doesn't make me selfish or unkind, it makes me someone who values herself enough to protect her own well-being. I've also installed a robust security system in my home and no longer keep spare keys with family members. Some might view these measures as excessive, but I see them as necessary steps in rebuilding my sense of safety and control over my personal space. The content series with Homestyle Living wrapped up last month with a final reveal episode that has become their most viewed content ever. The audience connected with the authentic story of recovery and rebuilding both of my home and my relationship with Rachel. I've received hundreds of messages from viewers who found courage to address their own boundary issues after watching my journey. One woman wrote, "After seeing how you stood your ground despite family pressure, I finally told my mother she can't just drop by my house unannounced anymore. It was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had, but also one of the most important." Messages like these help me see that something meaningful emerged from the chaos, that my experience might help others navigate their own challenging family dynamics. Standing in my beautiful restored kitchen this morning, sipping coffee from my favorite mug, I reflected on how far I've come since that shocking day 6 months ago. The journey hasn't been easy. There have been legal hassles, financial strains, family tensions, and many tears. But through it all, I've discovered a strength I didn't know I possessed. I've learned that it's possible to love someone deeply while still refusing to accept their harmful behavior, that forgiveness doesn't require forgetting or pretending the harm never occurred. That healing doesn't always mean returning to the way things were before. Sometimes, healing means building something entirely new from the ruins of what was destroyed. Something stronger, healthier, and more authentic. Just like my renovated kitchen, my life after this crisis isn't exactly the same as it was before. It's better. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? How did you navigate that challenging terrain? Drop a comment below to share your experience. Every like, subscribe, and share helps this channel reach others who might be struggling with similar family dynamics. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember, sometimes the most beautiful renovations aren't the ones we plan, but the ones that emerge from unexpected destruction. Until next time, take care of yourselves and your boundaries.